Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everybody has had a great and wonderful weekend. I hope you're all excited about the start to this new week. I know that I am. You know, this past week was Mother's Day, so I truly hope you had a wonderful weekend celebrating your mother and potentially remembering your mother for those of us out there who may have lost a parent at some point along our journey. My heart is with you. I hope you enjoyed the weekend, and I'm excited to be here with you today, where we're going to be diving into a really important topic, something that a lot of people don't talk about that is very, very important on your pathway to success, and I'm excited to do it. So first, let me welcome you back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Now, I'm Elliott Connie, and I'm a psychotherapist by trade, but I host this podcast to help you live the best life possible. And one of the things you have to do to live the best life possible is focus on rest and recovery. We live in a society that strongly promotes success and grinding and go, 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 and, you know, hustle culture, hustle culture, hustle culture. And I'll be honest, I am a proponent of grinding and hustle culture and hustle culture and hustle culture. But I think it's really, really important that we understand that rest and recovery is a part of hustle culture. Like, you have to take care of your body in order to grind and in order to hustle and in order to make all of the decisions and make all of the moves necessary to be successful. You really, honestly, you can't have one without the other. So let me explain to you what I mean. I have had to do really, really hard things to get to where I am. Getting a college degree for me was a challenge. I had to work and pay my way through. And towards the end of my bachelor's degree, I'll tell you about the most hectic and most difficult part of my education process, actually. I was completely out of money, no more like financial. I had to like make the money to do this. And I found a job that I could work on weekends, which was perfect because I could work on the weekends and I could do my coursework and do my class stuff for school Monday through Friday. But the weekend, in order to make enough money, my weekend job was a lot of hours. So the weekend job was 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. That's 36 hours in 2 days, right? It was a really, really long day. I won't get into what that job was. I was working at a brain treatment center, and I'll save that for another time. But anyway, it was really, really long. And then on Monday through Friday, I had to like get going on my schoolwork, and it was just a really hectic. And I did that for about a year and a half. But the other thing I did in that year and a half is I made sure I did two things every week. First thing is I made sure to plan a nap at some point during the week, because I knew like I'm going to need to recharge. I'm going to need to rest. If I push myself without taking rest, you're going to go past your capability and you will break down. You will push yourself to the point of failure. Think about your car. If you never get gas, if you never change the oil, eventually the car will go past to the point of failure and will no longer be able to run. So every single week, and I was like 22, 21, something like that, 23 maybe at this time. And I knew I've got to plan at least one nap in my week. And the other thing that I did is I planned at least one time where I would be free to play video games for a couple of hours. I'm someone who enjoys video games. I enjoyed them then, I enjoy them now. And it's not something that I had the time for then, or even now, to sit and play video games like all day. I wouldn't describe myself as a gamer, but I knew I needed to have fun and rest. And fun is a part of the recovery in every single week. So was it important that I worked 36 hours in 2 days? Yes. And was it important that I worked and studied in my coursework Monday through Friday like no one's ever done before? Yes. But it was also important that I had a nap in my schedule so I could really focus in on my rest and my recovery. And it was really important that I had some fun in there because it really mattered. Because if you don't do that, remember, just think about your car. Without gas, without changing the oil, eventually you're going to be driving that car on the way down the road and the car will fail to operate. When you are pushing yourself and you're going towards success and you're working as hard as you've ever worked, I don't want your body to fail to operate. So you're going to have to prioritize rest and recovery on some level. So my challenge for you, what I'd love for you to do is see if you can plan some rest in your week and some fun in your week. Even if it's just a quick nap, and even if it's just 30 minutes of fun, see if you can plan just a little bit of rest and recovery. It is a part of hustling. So thank you so much for being here today. I so appreciate you guys helping me spread the word of this podcast. If you please could continue doing that on your social media platforms or in your personal life, it would mean the world to me. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can do that on Simplecast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. Again, welcome to a brand new week. I hope it's the best week of your life, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow.
When I was a kid, I got a really up close and personal look at what happens when you don't rest, when you don't recover, when you don't take the time to regroup. It ruined one of the greatest talents that I had ever seen, and I want to tell you that story today so that you could learn this lesson too. But first, I want to welcome you back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And today I want to talk to you about one of my teammates growing up. I told you guys before, I grew up playing sports and I was really good at football, basketball, and baseball in particularly. And one of my teammates was a guy named Eric. And Eric was an unbelievable pitcher. He almost like a prodigy. I mean, he was throwing fastballs, which seemed like 90 miles an hour when we were just young kids. And he was the kind of kid that every summer other teams were recruiting to come play on their summer league teams. And we just knew Eric was going to go to college and potentially play professional baseball and have a long standout career and be rich and famous and all of the things. But Eric burned out. And what happened was Eric's family, in particular his grandfather, would push him to play baseball. And Eric, I mean, he was just a regular kid. And sometimes me and my friends, we were going to go to the beach. You know, New England kids during the summer spend a lot of time on Cape Cod. That's the beach that we would go to. And we were going to go to Cape Cod. And Eric always had something he had to go do to prepare for whatever baseball team he was playing for at the time. And I watched over time, baseball stopped being a fun activity that he did with his friends, that he did as a recreational sport. It became a job. And by high school, he was completely burned out. And he started making what seemed to me at the time, now I know a little bit about psychology, right? I've studied psychotherapy and all those things. But at the time, it seemed like he was intentionally sabotaging his baseball career. Because Eric would make really erratic decisions and get himself in mischievous trouble. Like he'd get suspended in school, and thus he couldn't play baseball for a week. Or one time he went to a party where there was alcohol, and we were all underage. And he got arrested and he got suspended from the baseball team for a period of time. Like there was this constant series of really negative decisions. And in spite of all of it, Eric had the opportunity to go play baseball in college. He played for about the first 2 weeks of being in college, and then he quit and he never played baseball competitively again. And I watched that and I just remember, you know, when we played, I mean, me and my friends, we were serious baseball players. Most of us went on to play in college. But I remember watching Eric, and like whenever we were going to go play video games, he wasn't really allowed to. And whenever we were going to go over, one of my friends had a pool, and we were going to go hang out at his house and swim in his pool, Eric wasn't really allowed to participate. Like, Eric was not allowed to enjoy his childhood or even enjoy the baseball playing. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. Eric's life was made significantly more complicated just because he wasn't able to rest and take a time out and take a deep breath and gather his thoughts and gather his feelings and gather his emotions. Like he just wasn't able to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. And that's really what resting does. It allows us to enjoy the process. It allows us to enjoy the experience. It allows us to really, really just have fun as we're going about things and avoid being burnt out. You know, I sometimes think what would have happened to Eric's life had he been allowed to have fun and enjoy the process. Because Eric's life was a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. Me and my friends, we all went to college in our late teens, graduated from college in our early to mid 20s, and had families and all those sorts of things. And I lost track of Eric in our 20s. I got in contact with his sister, and she said that he was struggling and made some silly decisions. But then in his early 30s, he went back to college, and last I heard, he had become a gym teacher. So I'm glad to hear Eric landed on his feet. I'm glad to hear Eric finished his college degree, and I'm glad to hear Eric was, had a stable job, a stable life. But I sometimes wonder what his life would have been looked like had he been allowed to just enjoy the process and be a kid. So what could you learn from that story, and what parallels might you find in your own? I remember watching Eric go through that and thinking, no matter what I do with the rest of my life, I want to pick things that I enjoy and I have fun. And I'm so glad that I have done exactly that. Hey, thank you so much for being here, everyone, and thank you for all that you are doing to help spread the word of this podcast. Please keep doing that by sharing this on your social media platforms, or just sharing it with someone in your personal life that you think could benefit from hearing this podcast today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can do this on Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Rest and recovery are important, and I hope so far this week on this podcast I've convinced you that that's true. So how do you do it? How do you actually rest and recover in a way that resets and recharges you and makes you better equipped to move forward and accomplish the goals that you have? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Elliott Connie, and I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. I want to talk to you about how to actually get proper rest and proper recovery in a way that makes you better and more prepared to achieve significant goals in your life. Now, I learned this, the how, I would say, when I went to college to play sports. And when I went to college, way back in the fall of 1994, which feels like a literal lifetime ago. But in the fall of 1994, I went to college and I went to go play baseball and football. And fall being football season, the first sport I played was football. And I remember going to practice, and you sit down with your coaches and they explain to you like the training regimen that we had to be on, and they explain the nutrition regimen we had to be on, and they tell us all these things. And I knew it was going to come. They were going to say, run this many miles each week and run this many sprints each day and lift this many weights. But then it also said, get this much sleep per day. And I don't remember now, it was so long ago, but it was something like 10 hours. And I was like, why 10 hours? And my coach said, because you have to be rested in order to be able to push yourself. So we want you to get 10 hours of sleep. And I went to college actually at 17. So being 17 years old and hearing, they want me to sleep instead of party and hang out with my friends, I was just like, whatever. Like, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to go party. I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I certainly didn't come to college to sleep 10 hours a day. Like, that's just not going to happen. And I remember one day I was out late. There was an event on the campus, like a campus movie night or something like that. I don't remember what it wasn't anything bad or anything mischievous. It was like a school-sanctioned movie night or something like that. Matter of fact, I think the movie they played that night was a movie called The Bronx Tale, just to tell you how long ago this was. And I went to this school-sanctioned function that they had. And when I left, it was pretty late. It was like midnight. And I was walking back to the dorm, and one of the football captains saw me. Now, I wasn't breaking any rules. I wasn't doing anything mischievous. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing anything like that. But one of the football captains saw me. So the next day in practice, we go through practice, and it was just a regular practice. And then at the end of practice, the coach says a bunch of names and tells all the people that he named to line up on the sideline, which was our cue that we were going to have to run sprints, like a ton of sprints, which were horrible. Like, after practice, running sprints is like the worst thing ever possible. And my name was one of the names that he called. And, some of these people had gotten caught breaking various rules, drinking. I mean, much less rule. I literally just walked back to my dorm at midnight, and they made me run. And I later learned that the captains kind of positioned themselves around the campus, not just to make sure that the incoming idiot freshmen on the team aren't breaking serious rules like drinking and drugging and those sorts of things, but they actually made sure that I was going to bed at a good hour. And they had these things called bed checks where they would go by your dorm room to make sure you were there and in bed. And they made sure you were going to class because rest is important. And I had to push my body physically to its absolute limit in order to play college football. And that was my first time realizing that part of pushing my body to its absolute limit is getting my body rested and having proper nutrition so that I could push my body in the way that my coaches were going to require me. So I'm saying all of that to you now because sometimes we feel run down and sluggish, but I think we have to prioritize rest. And I mean like proper sleep. I think we have to prioritize getting rest. I think we have to prioritize getting sleep. We have to prioritize eating the kinds of food that are associated with performance and allowing your body. And when I say your body, I also mean your mind, to allow yourself to function really, really well. And those are the things that we tend to not put in our to-do list. And I really appreciate back in 1994 that my coaches put on my task list, say, hey kid, get some rest, get 10 hours of sleep every night. And I do that now, even now, I prioritize sleep. If I'm tired and I am incapable of sleeping 10 hours. But in the middle of my day, if I have to lay down for a minute, I'm going to lay down for a minute. I'm willing to move things through my day because rest is that important. And I hope I've expressed to you how important it is and giving you some ideas on how you can do it too. And in fact, I want to ask you, what are your favorite ways to rest and recover? And what do you notice happening for you when you deploy those in your life? Because for me, it allows me to be able to push myself when I need to be pushed. And I think that's the benefit. So thank you so much for being here. You guys mean the world to me as you share this podcast. And I keep getting emails and even running into people who tell me they listen to the podcast. So thank you. Please keep doing that. Share it on your social media platforms with at least one person that you think could benefit from the message we share here on this podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. You can do that at Simplecast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Before we do anything else, today I actually want to acknowledge one of the most important people in my life. You guys have heard me talk about him and his family on the podcast. His name is Kyle. He's my childhood best friend. His family means the world to me. And today, May 11th, Wednesday, is his birthday. He turns 45 today. Happy birthday, Kyle. Shout out to you. And now, let's get into it. Because today we're going to talk about balance and how to strike the balance between having enough rest and pushing and driving yourself. How do you know when you're not leaning too far to one end or the other? That's what we're going to talk about today, and I hope it benefits you. Welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And of course, I'm the host, Elliott Connie. I'm a psychotherapist by trade, and I want my work and my life to inspire you. So that's what this podcast is all about. Today we're going to talk about balance and how to know you have enough balance. So I've been talking a lot this week about rest and recovery, and letting you know how important rest and recovery is, how I learned the importance of rest and recovery, how to actually do it. But it will also say you don't want to use rest and recovery, you don't want to listen to your emotions or feelings to determine whether or not you need rest. What you want to do is to use discipline to guide you. So I've also made no secret about the fact that throughout my life, or different parts of my life, I've struggled with depression. And I have a friend, a colleague in the field of psychotherapy, a guy named Bill. And Bill will often talk to people about how do you do your depression? And the way that I do my depression, when it does pop up in my life, is I sleep. I get down and I lay in bed and I don't want to move. The last time this happened was in 2020 when COVID happened. My entire speaking career and my therapy practice, which is how I was at the time making the majority of the revenue in my life, went away. My first response was a response of depression, and I literally laid on the couch for days. And sometimes when you listen to your emotions will tell you to do something like lay on the couch for a few days. And that is not good. That is not helpful. And the funny thing about that is when you become lethargic, your body craves more lethargicness, if that's a word. So you have to get up and move by discipline. And you have to be so every day I'm going to sleep this much and I'm going to move, like exercise this much, I'm going to work this much. Because if you don't, and you just kind of listen to your body, every now and then your body lies to you. Every now and then your body tells you what is comfortable as opposed to what is necessary. And because I was so down, because I literally just lost everything in that early part of 2020 when the COVID pandemic happened, I just didn't move. I just sat there. And it's so important that you recognize that sometimes your body doesn't tell you the truth and the balance gets tipped. Now, what ended up pulling me out of it is I eventually all right, I got to get up and I got to start moving around. And I got up and I started moving around and I started living my life with discipline. Like, even though I'm down and I'm super frustrated and I'm super depressed, I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to do these active things. I'm going to get things moving. And then eventually I had some ideas, because when you get moving, it's also good for the endorphins in your body, which is good for your brain. And as I got moving and I started doing things, I started having ideas. And those ideas actually led to 2020 being the most financially successful year I've ever had to that point. So just remember that sometimes you have to take the initiative and keep yourself moving, even when you may not feel like doing it. Like, have you ever had the experience of, like, I don't feel like going to the gym, but then you go to the gym anyway, and it turns out to be one of the best workouts you've had in a while, and it was good for you, and gets your endorphins moving, and your blood flowing, and all of those things? That's what rest and recovery is about. Like, it's not just, I think sometimes we forget the functionality. We think of rest as just, like, getting tons of sleep. But rest has a purpose. Like, I want to get this level of rest so I can push myself this much. And when you realize that, like, I'm resting so I can push, and then I'm pushing so I can rest, then you start living your life in a balance where you have a cycle where one, rest, feeds the other, pushing, and then when pushing feeds the other, rest. And that is the balance that we want to strike. And that will make you more productive. Done over the course of time, it'll make you more successful. It'll allow you to achieve more of your goals and more of the things you are ambitious about. And that is why this is so important. So I want to encourage you guys to create a schedule that promotes this balance so you can use discipline to follow that schedule and not emotion. Don't make the mistake that I made when I was being too led by my emotions, and my emotions of sadness caused me to stay in bed for longer than was healthy. So thank you so much for being here, everybody. It means the world to me that you guys continue to share this podcast. Please keep doing that on your social media platforms, or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that on Simplecast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. See you. Happy Friday, everyone, and I'm super glad you're here. We're going to be wrapping up our conversation about rest and recovery, and today I'm going to share how I think rest and recovery is so important that I focus on it for my employees that work for my company and what I think it does to the culture here. So even if you don't have your own company, even like a family, I want to talk to you how focusing on rest and recovery will impact an entire system. So I want to welcome you back to the Aha Moments. I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and this is where I use the examples from my work and my life to inspire you to live your very best life. I spent a lot of years as a psychotherapist, so I've learned a lot. And here I want to share all of those ideas with you. So one of the things I think is so important is to have fun and to have rest and have recovery. Because we live in this COVID world and so many of us work remotely, my team also works remotely, but at least once a year, we try to get everyone together. And one of the things that we did, so we broadcast a lot of our events. So what we do at our company is we do trainings, and we broadcast a lot of them using online video platforms. And I will bring the entire team, I'll rent a house, I'll bring the entire team to a house, and then we'll do the event from the house. Even though we're doing the event virtually, at least we get to be there as a team and have like a digital stage. And one of the times we did this, and sometimes we'll rent the house in wherever, like a cool place, so we get to come together. And one of the times we did this in Chicago. One night after we had done the event, it was opening day the next day for Major League Baseball. And I grew up a huge baseball fan. And I just thought to myself, like, I wonder, is there a game here in Chicago? Chicago happens to have two Major League teams, the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs, and I thought there's a pretty good chance that one of those teams will be playing here in Chicago. So I jumped online and looked up some tickets and realized the tickets were expensive, but not crazy, like we could afford them. And So I said to my team, like, would you guys want to go to a Chicago Cubs game? Because the Cubs happened to be the ones that were in town. And everybody was like so excited to go, and we were like, let's do this. And so I did. I bought the tickets. The next morning was really cold, so we had to go to like a Dick's Sporting Goods and buy warmer clothes for like everybody on the team. And then we went to the game, and I can't even describe to you how cold it was. I can't even believe that those players were out there playing. It was so icy cold. And the game went on, and baseball's kind of a slow game. Like an average baseball game is about 3 hours, and we sat there and we're miserable. Scarves, hats on, my toes were frozen. And I turned to my team and I said, when this goes from uncomfortable to like pain, we can leave. We can go home. So they were like, sure, that sounds good to me. So we waited a bit, and before you knew it, we were all like, all right, this is now miserable. And those of you who know baseball, it was around the 5th inning or so. And then we left. But to this day, like, we talk about how much fun that was. And we've done other fun things where we have gone to different resorts, and we have met up in cool places like Palm Springs and had really amazing food. Like, we try to eat at really amazing restaurants. And not like, I don't mean, when I say amazing, I don't just mean like super expensive, but I mean like if we see a cool barbecue place on Food Network and we have to be in the city where there's a cool barbecue place that was on television, we want to go to those things. And why do we do that? Because I think it's important to have fun in life, because that's also part of rest and recovery. When someone enjoys their job or enjoys their role in the family or enjoys their role in the system, they're so much more likely to be highly productive. They're so much more likely to be dedicated. They're so much more likely to be the best version of themselves. And as a leader, it's your responsibility to understand sometimes I have to push people. I have to push people to go beyond their capabilities. I have to push people to go beyond what they thought they could do. I have to really push them to help them be at the highest level of themselves. But part of pushing is recognizing in order to be able to do that, I also have to have them enjoy their experience as a part of the system. And whether or not that's in your family, in your company, on a sports team, on whatever, it's important that I take leadership seriously and understand that culture is impacted by how much work we get done, but also how much fun we're having and how we're able to rest and recover from when we have to work really, really hard. I think very often in positions of leadership, we lean too much on how hard it is to work and not enough on how important it is that we have fun, we have the ability to rest, and how important recovery is to our ability to be really successful. So that's important, and I hope you guys have taken a lot away from this week. So this is your final reminder that it is important to take time to rest and recover, to re-spark your growth, your creativity, your fun, and to look for different ways you can incorporate rest and recovery into your daily routine. So thank you so much for being here. Means the world to me, and you guys, this podcast is spreading. I really appreciate all that you guys are doing to help that happen. So please keep sharing it on a social media platform. Please keep sharing it with your friends who you think could benefit from this message. And please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. Have a great weekend, and I can't wait to see you on Monday.